So oftentimes we really want to find fun ways to get those proximal hamstrings because, you know, there's only so many dead bugs or so many deadlifts that you can do before things get a little boring. So we're going to come into supine with the straps, and we're going to pop our feet into the straps here. And this is a very classic Pilates exercise. It's very, very simple, but I do love it. I've got 1.5 springs, so one red and one blue. I'm just coming up, really allowing that tailbone to be heavy while stretching through that upper hamstring region. So energy through the straps just to press back down and then lift again. Big stretch. So I often like to introduce this exercise with 2 feet into the straps, but it really gets fun, or it gets really focused after you transition just to 1 strap. So keeping that leg nice and long, you can have the other leg in tabletop. There's a lot of load here, also because I haven't switched the spring weight, which you may want to do for your client if they're just doing one side. But you get a really deep stretch and then press long, making sure we're not hyperextending into that knee. This is simply lift and lower. Very basic exercise, but really great because we're getting a passive stretch, and then we're working through some concentric work and then eccentric work on the way up. Moving on, we're going to come up into single thigh stretch. So we're going to keep 1 red spring or 1 heavy spring on and remove that half spring. I'm going to have my 2 hands on the foot bar. The foot bar is all the way up to the top. If you do find you have a client that has limited hamstring range, or if they have limited hip flexion range of motion, you can pop it down 1 notch. So 2 hands up here, 1 hand up. We're going to have the foot nicely grounded. Some people, because of their anatomy, they prefer to have the leg on the outside of the 2 hands, but truly if we're trying to get more hamstrings, I try to cue them to be here. So we're going to press long into a little bit of a split stretch and then come up, focusing on allowing that release to happen right here. So when they come out, there's going to be a big stretch, but also some eccentric work. So lengthening under load to press and then back in. If that's really good, you can add a little bit of an balance element, a little bit of a core element by putting the hands onto the knees and then pressing out long. If you're feeling really, really keen, you can add a forward bend. So we're gonna come forward, slide the legs down, oh, almost lost it, and then come back up. So let's do that again. So we're gonna have 2 hands on the knee, pressing and reaching forward, and then coming back up. You can see I don't have the longest hamstrings in the world. I do have clients that can get all the way through to a full split, and then you have to be really careful at that point that you don't have too light of a spring. So if you've got someone that's a dancer or they're a gymnast, you have to be really careful with this one here. The last one, we're going to come up into standing for elephant flat back. So we're going to keep 1 spring. You may wish to add a little bit more weight if you want to get some more of those glute fibers as well, but generally speaking, 1, 1.25, or 1 heavy, 1 light is usually where I like to live for this one if we're getting hamstrings. So 2 hands wide on the foot bar, it's gonna stay at the top, feet back, and we're gonna find a nice flat back position here. So you'll notice my feet are flat on the carriage. You do have the option to come up into high half toe, in which case you're gonna get a little bit more anterior chain. If you wanna stay in that posterior chain, I do recommend keeping the feet down. You can also pop like toning balls, the Pilates toning balls, underneath the heels if you want to keep that heel contact, but they don't have the hamstring range. You can also allow a soft bend into those knees. So keeping the back nice and flat, we're going to press away and then come back in, sit bones wide. So for here, we're really thinking of that deep fold in the front of the hips. If you want to, you can go into like a single leg and then back in. So a really great way to access the posterior chain. You're not really aiming for a whole lot of flexibility with this one. It's really, can they engage those proximal fibers? And if it's too easy, then just bump the weight up a little bit.